Things will be very difficult for the gun grabbers when it comes to national gun laws, at least for the next few years. But it appears that the money that would be used to lobby Washington, D.C. for gun control is being used at the state level. The Colorado gun grabbers have just passed a bill through their House of Representatives that's disguised as a bill to promote election integrity. Now, it's really a red flag anti-gun bill with a fake name. The bill's called HB 1225, or the Freedom from Intimidation in Elections Act. The bill is sponsored by Democrat Representative Stephen Woodrow, Democrat Representative Elizabeth Velasco, and Democrat Senator Nick Hinrichsen. Of course, Democrats would play the victim when it comes to elections while pushing a false narrative that somehow election intimidation is being perpetrated by their political opposition, when in fact, burning down cities and blowing up Tesla cars mysteriously occurs when they don't win elections. The truth is, this bill would create a law for the purpose of intimidating gun owners. Now, the bill proposes to prevent election intimidation. However, what it really does is put gun owners at risk of false accusation and potential arrest. For doing what, you ask? Well, here's what the new bill proposes. The bill makes it unlawful for an individual to intimidate, threaten, or coerce, or even attempt to intimidate, threaten, or coerce anyone in connection with voting or attempting to vote, urging or aiding another person to vote, exercising duties related to election administration, such as vote counting, canvassing, and certification, and the individual's role or status as a participant in the administration of elections, both past and present. But what, you might ask, do these Democrats proposing this bill consider to be intimidation? Well, the answer is your gun. This bill may look like an election-related bill, but all the so-called intimidation tactics that the bill implies are an issue are only a concern if you have a gun, not a knife or any other type of weapon, just guns and only visible guns, because it's not really about danger. This is about the freedom to open carry and an attempt at ostracizing gun owners. The bill specifies that an individual who carries a visible firearm, imitation firearm, or even a toy firearm while interacting with or observing any of the specified election-related activities is presumed, in the absence of any affirmative showing to the contrary, to have engaged in intimidation prohibited by the bill. So if you live within view of any election activity and your children are playing with their Nerf guns in the front yard, it is likely that this law would allow the assumption that you're intimidating, threatening, or coercing, and if you are accused, you would have to prove otherwise. In other words, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent under this bill. If you're voting or helping someone else vote and you're open carrying your firearm, you would be violating this law. If you're doing anything related to voting with respect to vote counting or any other administrative work and you're openly carrying your firearm, you would be violating this law. If you're carrying your gun openly and you're around anyone who has ever been involved in election administrative services, you'd be breaking this law. According to this bill, doing any of these things is considered a form of intimidation, threat, or coercion. But you were just carrying your gun in public as the law allows and came in contact with election activity or a person discussing elections. That's legal, right? Well, not anymore. Democrats in Colorado understand that in most of their state, it's legal to carry a gun open in public, and they hate that. This new legislation appears to be nothing more than an attack on open carriers in the hopes of catching them off guard, exercising their Second Amendment right. This is a way of demonizing guns and gun owners while tarnishing the American tradition of carrying a firearm in the eyes of the public. Does this mean if you're following the law and carrying a gun openly, but happen to be talking to someone who was once involved in the administration of elections, you could be arrested? Well, it looks that way. This bill specifically includes participants in the administration of elections, both past and present. Does this mean that if you're open carrying your firearm around your neighbor who once worked in the election polls, you would be breaking the law? How would you ever know that you were violating this new potential law? The truth is, you wouldn't. And that's exactly the idea. Democrats love vaguely written law so they can interpret it the way they want. HB 1225 looks like nothing more than an attack on the Second Amendment and another way for the gun grabbers to make the bearing of arms in public as uncomfortable as possible. We have to understand that many of these laws are not just for the purpose of disarming gun owners, but for the purpose of creating a narrative and a social stigma around guns and gun owners. In this case, with respect to this bill, it seems to be just as much about conditioning the public to believe that election officials are being harassed and threatened by gun owners as much as it is about creating a law to punish gun owners for simply exercising the Second Amendment. Remember, the name of this bill is the Freedom from Intimidation in Elections Act. You see, when the public becomes aware of a bill like this, the inclination of people who don't know any better is to believe that gun owners are using their guns to influence elections. Otherwise, why in the world would we need such a law? Well, many people will believe that this must be happening or there wouldn't be legislation in the works. Now, the truth is, this isn't happening anywhere. The Democrats responsible for this bill are just painting a misleading picture in what appears to be an attempt at harassing their fellow Coloradans. As of April 7th, 2025, Colorado House Bill 1225, known as the Freedom from Intimidation in Elections Act, has not yet passed the full House. The bill was introduced on February 11th, 2025, and assigned to the House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee. On March 17, 2025, this committee passed the bill with an 8-3 vote. Following this, the bill was sent to the House Committee of the Whole, where it awaits further consideration. So when does it end? That's a good question. When we, the people, decide that these quasi-Americans have no place in our government or making rules of any kind that affect our traditional American way of life. Thanks for watching Bullet Points. I'm Dan Wass for Gun Owners Foundation. You can find more Second Amendment content and updates at gunowners.com.